Historically, the Catholic Church has been resistant and at times militant against any perceived threats to its absolute authority. One of the most consistent challengers to the Church's social sovereignty has been the field of science. Throughout medieval history, and even into modern times, some religious people have viewed science as dangerous to their faith, and conversely, many modern scientists think the Church's inclination to stifle scientific progress is detrimental to society. One of the quintessential events that displays the tension between faith and science is the trial of Galileo.
Galileo was born in Pisa, Italy, February 15, 1564. He was a philosopher, astronomer, mathematician, and physicist. He is considered by some the father of modern science. He is credited with the creation of the modern scientific method, which he used to establish many fundamental principles of physics and astronomy. Galileo wrote and published many books detailing the results of these experiments. Chief amongst his important contributions to the world of science is his enhancement of the previously rudimentary telescope in 1609. But above all, his lasting legacy is his defense and propagation of the Copernican theory of celestial motion.
For nearly 1,500 years, the only accepted theory of planetary motion was the Ptolemaic theory. Ptolemy theorized that the Earth was the center of the world, and the other planets, along with the Sun, revolved around it. This idea, the Church would later argue, is supported by Holy Scripture. Copernicus challenged this idea in the early 16th century and stated that the Earth, along with the other planets, revolved around the Sun, which is the center of the solar system. Through observations made using his improved telescope, Galileo verified Copernicus's heliocentric theory. He then positioned the heliocentric and the geocentric views against each other in the dialogue concerning two chief world systems.
In 1629, Galileo finished his work and 3 years later persuaded hesitant church officials to authorize the publication of his manuscript. The dialogue would turn out to be too much for the church to tolerate. Pope Urban VIII was displeased with the absolute tone Galileo used when explaining the Copernican view of planetary motion. In 1633, he was found guilty by a Vatican Inquisition, sentenced to imprisonment, and was required to abjure his discoveries. Shortly after befriending an archbishop, he was allowed to return home and serve out the remainder of his sentence under house arrest. He spent the final 8 years of his life incarcerated at home until he died January 8, 1642.
It was not until 1992 that Pope John Paul II officially issued an apology to Galileo, and this only following a 13-year investigation on Galileo's trial. During the investigation, the panel was able to confirm that the Earth did in fact revolve around the Sun, and the condemnation of Galileo was unjust. John Paul II cited an inability to discern between the Bible's meaning and the Church's interpretation. An excerpt from the apology, originally delivered in French, reads, "Thanks to his intuition as a brilliant physicist and by relying on different arguments, Galileo, who practically invented the experimental method, understood why only the Sun could function as the center of the world, as it was then known, that is to say, as a planetary system. The error of the theologians of the time, when they maintained the centrality of the Earth, was to think that our understanding of the physical world structure was in some way imposed by the literal sense of sacred scripture."
It may have taken more than 350 years, but Galileo was eventually vindicated and absolved of any wrongdoing in the eyes of the Church. The Catholic Church has a notorious reputation for being behind the times when scientific and social developments arise, but with a single address from Pope John Paul II, the Church became 350 years more hip. With any luck, this trend will continue and the estranged ideals of science and faith will be reconciled.